Thank you for joining us tonight for this Public Safety Power Shutoff and Wildfire Safety Community Meeting. We're grateful to the City of Malibu for graciously hosting us this evening. I'd also like to extend our sincere thank you to our partner agencies, some of whom have representatives tonight: Senator Ben Allen's office, Assemblymember Jackie Irwin's office, and Supervisor Lindsay Horvath's office. The Las Virgenes Malibu cities of Agoura Hills, Calabasas, Hidden Hills, Malibu, and Westlake Village. The Malibu Chamber, the Calabasas Chamber, and the Conejo Valley Chamber. And our nonprofit partners, Arson Watch, Malibu Moves, and the Conejo Las Virgenes Future Foundation. Our partners have helped promote this meeting so we could reach out to those of you here tonight. And most importantly, thank you to the residents who have taken time out of your evening to join us. Your participation is vital and we appreciate your engagement. And with that, I would like to welcome Mayor Mary Ann Riggins.
Hello everybody, thank you for joining us this evening. It's great to see people here in person, and I know we have a lot of people online. There's a lot of great information that's going to be shared by Edison. I encourage good, respectful questions to be asked, and that we have just an open dialogue and we can get information. Both the people that are online, this is important for our upcoming fire season and making sure that our community has everything that they need in order to prepare for it and keep us all safe in our community and know where our resources are and how we move forward. So I appreciate you coming and look forward to all your questions.
Thank you. I would just like to acknowledge the mayor's comments and really appreciate everyone for being here. We know there is deep frustration and concern around the outages in Malibu, and know that this is echoed by all of the cities in the region. This is one of the main reasons we're here tonight. We recognize that the experience that you're going through with these outages is a challenge, and we're here to walk you through. We have a great panel of folks to speak to all the different elements that go into some of the decision making. And we look forward to hearing directly from you what your questions are, how we continue to work together to figure out a pathway forward. With that, I will go ahead and start with just a safety moment, which is how we start all of our meetings at Southern California Edison. We are committed to continuous improvement, especially when it comes to wildfire mitigation and public safety power shutoffs. Tonight's meeting is part of that commitment to share information and work together. We've brought, as I mentioned, subject matter experts from across to answer questions. And following the presentation, we'll go ahead and open it up for Q&A. We have 2 microphones across the room for you to be able to queue and ask your questions or make your comments. And we'll also be taking questions and comments online. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to mention that the exit doors to the right and the left, in the event of an emergency, the SCE team has been assigned safety roles to ensure that we're able to move everybody out safely. There's also restrooms near the entrance should anybody need a restroom. Thank you again for being here, and let's get started. I'd like to start with Tom Rolinski, who is our fire science expert and our meteorologist.
Good evening, everybody. Again, it's great to be here with you all tonight. And what I want to do is sort of talk candidly about our weather program here. Do we need to go over the agenda at all, or we're good? Okay. So my name is Tom Rolinski. I'm the fire scientist with Southern California Edison. I've just really quickly a little bit about my background. Before coming to Southern California Edison, I was working for the U.S. government for almost 27 years as a fire meteorologist. I've worked for LA County Fire Department, or worked with LA County Fire Department for many years. And so my background is in fire meteorology. And so My job with the company is to help with all the wildfire mitigation efforts. So what I want to do here is talk to you just again, sort of candidly, a little bit about our weather program and sort of how we put together, how we identify PSPS events or public safety power shutoff events. So the first thing I wanted to talk a little bit about here while we're kind of warming up is to talk a little bit about what we can expect for the rest of this fire season. I know that we're approaching peak fire season right now. We've kind of been in it for the last few months, but now we're getting into the worst time of the year where our vegetation is at its driest point, and now we start to see the Santa Ana winds returning to the area. So that overlap where we have very dry fuels in place, along with increasing wind conditions, is obviously going to sort of set the stage for potential for significant wildfires. I don't need to tell you folks how wildfire prone this area is and the kind of weather that we have that brings wildfire into this region. But I will mention that we don't necessarily have to have extreme weather conditions to have a large, very impactful wildfire. But as we, just talking a little bit as we move into the next couple of months here, we've got an image here on the screen showing, on the left here, showing the drought index here, the drought monitor. And it's basically showing that as drought has returned to a lot of Southern California. And that's basically been a result of the lack of precipitation that we've had this past winter and spring. So now we're starting to see drought conditions returning. But I will say that even though we have drought in place right now and our vegetation, generally speaking, is drier than normal for this time of the year, I don't expect a repeat of the conditions that we had last fall and early winter. I do think that we will likely see rain earlier, or I should say sooner than later this fall and this winter. It does look like we'll probably end up having a drier than normal winter, but despite that, I do think we're going to see precipitation returning to the area probably a little sooner than we normally do. So that's good. That potentially is good news if that does actually pan out. I think that could help mitigate the fire potential for this fall across the local area here. So that's kind of what we're looking at. That's kind of the sort of the key piece here that's sort of a big wild card in terms of how much precipitation we get and when we start seeing that precipitation occurring, because once we start to see the rainfall occurring at sort of a normal frequency, then that will really help to moisten up the fuels and really mitigate our fire potential. So I wanted to talk just briefly here about the difference between sort of our weather forecast and the National Weather Service forecast. One of the questions that comes up a lot from folks is how come we have a public safety power shutoff, my power is being turned off, and yet the National Weather Service doesn't have any watches or warnings in effect, no advisories. Why is that? And the main reason for that is because the National Weather Service is producing forecasts for broad areas, for large geographic areas, and whereas we're forecasting at sort of a very localized level. So we're looking at forecasts that really for each one of our circuits. And as you know, there's a ton of microclimates in this region, in the Santa Monica Mountains. And so there's all these little nuances that occur in the weather. So some place might be extremely windy and a mile away or even a half a mile away, it's dead calm. So we have those kind of conditions occurring in this area a lot. And so our weather forecasts are tailored as best as we can predict those kinds of microclimates and those kinds of changes over short distances. And so that's the big difference between the forecast that we produce and the forecast that the National Weather Service produces. We're not any better than the National Weather Service. We're just, our forecasts just serve a different purpose. And so we have those differences that can occur in our forecast versus what the National Weather Service provides. So the other thing I wanted to mention really quickly here is that there's two things going on. One is that we have forecasts and we have observations, right? Forecasts tell us what's going to happen over the next several days or the next week or so. And then observations are what's actually going on right now. And there's a big difference there, an important difference, because we use forecasts to identify what circuits are in scope for our PSPS event and for how long. But we actually use observations, current conditions, to make de-energization decisions. So we have forecasts that identify the PSPS event, what circuits are in scope. You'll get notifications based upon those forecasts, but we won't actually de-energize the circuit. We won't turn the power off until we see those conditions being met in real time. So we don't use forecasts to turn the power off, only to scope out and identify the PSPS event. And you can see on the screen here, we've got a lot of weather stations across all the Santa Monica Mountains, including the Malibu area. We have over 1,800 weather stations across our entire service territory. But right here locally, we've got, there's too many to count here on the screen, but you can see all those white weather station locations there. We've got a lot of weather stations in the area, so that's what we use to determine whether we're actually going to turn the power off on a particular circuit or not. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to my colleague Ray Fougere, who's going to talk about PSPS operations.
Ray, before you jump in, I just also want to note, as we're going through, we have comment cards in the room. So Stephanie has comment cards if you want to write a question as you're going. We also have the ability to ask questions online. So I just wanted to note those pieces. Feel free to raise your hand. She's happy. There we go. Happy to bring them around. Thank you, Ray.
No problem. Thank you. So my name is Ray Fougere. I'm our Director of Asset and System Intelligence at Southern California Edison. My job, I really look at what's happening on the system and how can we help to make it a better system for our customers. So I want to talk about what we have done so far in this area on our grid hardening. So there's some numbers up here and I'll go over some numbers. In this area, we've completed about 100 miles of covered conductor. And we've done this since late 2018 is when we really launched our covered conductor program. We plan to install about another 60 miles. So this is part of what we've done in this area in and around Malibu. But when you look at our overall system that we maintain, we have about 10,000 miles in our high fire area. And since late 2018, we've installed almost 7,000 miles of covered conductor through our service territory. And I just want to explain what covered conductor is. Most wire that you see prior to 2019 was bare. Just means it was bare metal running from pole to pole. What we're doing is we're taking that wire down and installing covered conductor. This is wire that has a plastic coating on it. So if an object flies into that wire, it's less likely to cause an arc or an ignition. It also reduces and makes the grid more resilient in those areas. So we've installed that. You can see we've done a lot of miles. Some of the other things we've done in the area are we've installed switches. The reason we're installing switches is so we can shrink the area that's impacted by PSPS, trying to reduce it to only the area that's critically impacted by the wind. Try to minimize it to the customers. You can see we've installed about 6 switches since we've launched our program, and then we have 3 more pending to really reduce that area. In addition, we've done undergrounding. Undergrounding is really effective, but undergrounding also takes time. It can take us 3-4 years sometimes to get projects done. So far we've completed 9 miles, and we have about another 178 miles planned in this community to really try to help reduce the impacts of PSPS and also reduce the impacts of wildfire associated with SCE facilities. So we're really doing a lot to try to mitigate these areas. But that's not all we're doing. We also have to do vegetation management work, and I want to explain. So right now, SCE has about 1.6 million trees throughout our service territory. That's a lot of trees, and we inspect these trees every year to trim and maintain compliance with regulations, keeping those trees away from our power lines. About 750,000, a little less than half those trees, are in our high fire areas. So that's in and around Malibu and other areas where there's a high risk. We're inspecting those trees annually. We're trimming them to greater clearances to make sure they stay away from our lines. We're also removing trees that could fall into the lines through a heavy wind. So we want to make sure we're mitigating those dangers and making it safer. So we are doing a lot of different work to try to minimize that risk associated with our facilities. But sometimes all that work isn't enough, and we have to use PSPS, or Public Safety Power Shutoff. And so there's two criteria that we use to kind of determine when we're going to institute a PSPS event. The first is FPI, or Fire Potential Index. This is a variable that Tom and the other meteorologists and the fire scientists develop. It's on a scale of 1 to 17, and basically, simply put, when it's a score of 1, that means there's a really low likelihood of a wildfire starting. Think about it when it's raining or when there's snow on the ground in the mountainous areas. 17, that's a really high danger, that an ignition could lead to a catastrophic wildfire. And so as you get closer to that 17, it's more likelihood that you can have an ignition. So it's the first variable we're using to determine when we're going to use PSPS. We're really doing this to determine when is it really critical and there could be a really large wind event or fire breakout. The next, as Tom mentioned, is wind. That's when you see those large, fast-moving fires occur. So we're looking at wind. We have two different wind criteria that we use. So we have a criteria for our bare overhead wires, and we're using the National Weather Service's wind advisory criteria. And that criteria, you can see it on the board, on the screen, is 31 miles per hour sustained or 46 miles per hour gusts. We're using that criteria because that's when objects start to become airborne. And so if you have bare electric wires, if an object gets airborne, it could fly into those lines and cause an ignition by causing an arc. So that's when we're using those triggers. But we raise those criteria when the whole segment is covered conductor. And we raise it to 40 miles per hour sustained and 58 miles per hour gusts. And the reason we do that, because that's the criteria and conditions when things start to break. So when large trees, large branches, or poles could become impacted from the winds. So those are how we design and the criteria we're using for our PSPS conditions. But we will discount sometimes those wind conditions in the event based upon system health or other factors. In the event, if there's large fires and fire resources are constrained because they're fighting other fires, we may discount that because we want to make sure we are not overtaxing or having another ignition break out when the fire agencies may not be able to respond quickly. So in event, we will change those criteria. And as Tom pointed out, we are using actual wind conditions when we make that determination to de-energize. When we initiate the PSPS, we're using forecast. But when we de-energize, it is actual. Now, I'll walk through kind of how the PSPS notification timeline works. Constantly, our team of in-house meteorologists and the fire scientists are looking at what's happening on the system. They're running models, looking at what the weather's going to do or expected to do. And 4 to 7 days out, sometimes they'll see that there could be a PSPS event. We will meet those criteria. And during that, we internally will start to stand up a team to look ahead and monitor this situation. As the time gets closer and closer to when they're projecting it to come out, it becomes more and more accurate of the forecast. And as we get there, about 3 days out, if it looks like we're going to meet those conditions, that's when we start to notify customers. Originally, we used to just notify cities and counties 3 days out, and we'd notify customers 2 days out. This year, we switched that to notifying everybody 3 days ahead to give people as much advanced information as possible. We strive to do this 3 days ahead, but sometimes the weather can change at 2 days ahead, so conditions may not allow us to give 3 days. But we try to give 3 days as much as possible. But once we give that initial notice, we will constantly update as conditions change. Sometimes areas may fall out of PSPS conditions because the winds will abate. We'll let customers know when they're no longer in scope. Sometimes additional circuits or areas may come in. We will let customers know. So we're constantly trying to give as much information as possible. But now once that event happens, we have a team stood up that's monitoring the system 24/7. And when we do this, we try to give you as much notice of an imminent de-energization. So 1 to 4 hours, we try to let customers know that we're planning to de-energize. We're looking at the wind conditions, seeing if it's picking up, and when we see it start to pick up and get closer to the criteria, that's when we let you know. So that's kind of how the event goes. And then once the conditions of the wind are met, that's when we will actually de-energize the circuits, when we're seeing that reading from our 1800 weather stations. So once we make the determination that we need to shut off power because the winds are high, that's when we'll shut off the power. After that, we are constantly continuing to monitor the conditions, because once the conditions abate and it gets less windy, that's when we'll look to restore power. But there's a couple factors that go into how quickly we can restore power. First, once we determine that it's safe to do so, we will institute and start to patrol our lines. But there's other conditions that will have to happen. Some areas can't be patrolled at night. Some areas have to have a helicopter to patrol. And then we will start to patrol when it is safe to do so. And then we will also, if we come across it, we may have to make repairs. So that's why we cannot always give you a defined time when power will be restored. Because if we come across damage or things, it could take longer to be able to get power back. And so that's kind of the life cycle of how a PSPS event works. Now, there's a couple different outages, and I just want to quickly talk about the different outages you may experience. Is it a PSPS outage? Is it a maintenance outage? Is it a repair outage? These are all different types of outages one may experience. A PSPS event, we will give you notification in advance. We will tell you when we plan to institute the PSPS, and then we'll give you advance notice of when we're looking to de-energize. A maintenance outage is when we're doing plant betterment, when we're doing those upgrades, when we're installing underground conductors, when we're converting overhead conductors to cover conductor. That's a maintenance outage. Usually we'll give you 10 days advance notice of that because it's planned work. I will also point out, when we go into PSPS, we do look to cancel maintenance outages to minimize those impact to our customers. And then the last one is a repair outage. This is an unexpected outage. This is something we don't plan. We can't give you really advance notice because it's a car hitting a pole, a car hitting a pad mount transformer. Those are things we can't plan for. But we will add information on our website so you can understand what is going on. And we'll give you as best information at a high level of what that outage is. So there's a couple common questions we get when we have PSPS events. One of those is, why is my power off when it isn't windy? This is actually a circuit in our system, and you can see that purple dot that has the word substation next to it. That's where the power comes from. And so you can see that wire goes across that orange area. That's our high fire area, and it's on a hill, so the power will come down that hill and go to that circle, that red circle, which is an underground neighborhood, down the hill. So they may not be experiencing wind, but because they're fed from a point higher on a hill, we may have to shut off power because of the winds hitting that overhead line farther up the hill. And lastly, another question we commonly get, and I just want to talk about it, is, why does my neighbor have power when I don't? We have multiple circuits feeding different parts of our service territory, and two neighbors could be fed by different circuits. This is an example where you can see the orange is a circuit that goes in and out of high fire area, and then that light blue and purple lines are fed from different areas. So a customer may be de-energized on that orange segment because there's high winds on that circuit. But a customer on that purple or blue line may not be because it could be less windy or because they're fed from a different circuit. So there's all these different little nuances of why some customers may have power and some may not during a PSPS event. And with that, I'll pass it to my colleague, Amir.
Amir, before you get started, one more announcement about questions. For those of you online, we see people raising their hand, but you will need to type your questions into the chat function so that we're able to capture them and read them out loud in the room.
Good. Hi, my name is Amir. I am been leading the ops section of the Malibu rebuild and restoration efforts since January 9th. Just wanted to start off real quick and acknowledge, the profound loss and disruption this community's had for the last 9.5 months. Many have been left without homes. We realize the emotional stress it has caused, and I just want to take a moment and acknowledge that. Okay, let me get my notes. I don't have words on my slides here. There it is. Okay. Our crews have been working. Our crews have been working nonstop since late January, restoring power to the homes that remain, and restoring critical infrastructure. As you see out there right now, we do have power that's being stored on temporary poles and generators. In terms of overall progress, currently we've completed about 2 miles of underground energization. You can see that on the Topanga side of that picture, that turquoise color line. Almost 8 miles are currently in progress of already installed and being connected to be energized. So about 16 miles are currently in construction. That means we have civil crews out there up and down the canyons and on PCH, trenching, installing the underground infrastructure, getting ready to put the electrical service in there. And we still have about 3 miles left that we are currently working with residents on private property right of entries and permitting around government lands. What to expect next? Okay, so we'll be continuing to work through the end of the year, specifically around PCH, and up and down some of the Rambla, Las Flores, Big Rock communities. And I can see. So we're on the north side right now, which is essentially our main circuit feed for the Nicholas circuit. We do plan on completing the north side by the end of 2026, and we plan on crossing PCH through the better half of next year. We'll be continuing to reach out to customers. We've seen significant amount of success as of late, but that's a big part of our undergrounding effort to partner with everybody to make sure that we have the proper rights to be able to install the infrastructure to get the power where it needs to go. We have notifications, letters, emails have been sent out to residents. I believe everyone should have received those and more to come. And we've constantly putting updates on the website along with different city meetings. So after SCE'S initial outreach, we have 2 contract vendors, Spectrum and Paragon. I didn't realize how bad my eyes were. That we're reaching out and trying to acquire the right of entries. And we also have individuals doing additional outreach, meeting with customers to make sure everyone fully understands the impact and the locations of where the underground infrastructure will be placed. I wanted to thank everyone for the continued support and partnership. I know it's not easy when we have all those big trucks and equipment all around the community, lanes closed and impeding kind of home and going to and from home and schools. We've made a significant amount of progress, and I appreciate your patience. Then next, I'm going to pass to Lori.
All right, thank you, Amir. Hello, everyone. My name is Lori Blackwell, and I'm a principal manager in our customer service operations team. And I'm here to share with you some information around some of the resources and programs that we have available to try to mitigate some of the impacts associated with public safety power shutoffs. All right, so the first thing I wanted to share with you is around our community resource centers. So during public power safety shutoffs, Southern California Edison will use community resource centers as well as community crew vehicles to support customers in areas most likely impacted by PSPS. We have about 100 sites throughout our service territory that are available to be activated to support customers. And so during a PSPS or any other large public safety activation, customers can go to these facilities, and some of the services they can expect to receive are information for one, also share and provide water, some light snacks to customers, as well as resiliency kits. And then customers can also use those locations to charge any mobile devices or portable medical equipment that they might have. We also have in-language support for customers and accommodations for customers with disabilities or other access and functional needs. And we also encourage customers to visit the outage map as your go-to resource to understanding what type of outage you're experiencing for one, and to get the latest information around restoration and when you can expect power to be brought back on. Some of the local community resource centers we have for the Malibu Las Virgenes area include the Agora Hills Recreation and Civic Center, the Calabasas Community Center, the Juan Bautista Dianza Park Community Center in Calabasas, and the Michael Landon Community Center here in Malibu. And so after the events that happened in January, our teams across Edison have been actively working and trying to find additional ways where we can either create new programs or enhance the ones we have to try to further mitigate the impacts customers experience when we have to call a PSPS event. We have launched a temporary generation program for PSPS school support, and we are partnering with the Malibu Unified School District to install temporary generators both at the Malibu Elementary and the Malibu High School. Additionally, we're working with Malibu High School to operationalize a microgrid facility that can serve as a designated public space during major disaster events. So that is working in progress right now. All right, so let's talk about some of our battery backup programs that support resiliency. So first up is the Critical Care Battery Backup Program. So this is for customers that are on medical baseline program and reside within a high fire risk area. And we have a team that will assess the needs of these customers and will deliver the hardware directly to the customers and help them set it up and show them how it operates. Next is the in-event battery loan program. So this is for customers that either don't qualify or haven't taken advantage of the Critical Care Battery Backup Program, but they do have a need to power a medical or assistive device during a PSPS, and Edison will coordinate the drop-off and pickup of batteries at the customers' homes. We also have rebates for portable generators for both residential and non-residential customers that are located in high fire risk areas. The higher $600 rebate is for customers that are either on one of our low income programs, which is the CARE or FARA program, or if they are on medical baseline. But if you aren't on any of those programs but do reside in a high fire risk area, you are eligible for the $200 rebate for portable generators. There's also a $150 rebate on portable power stations for customers that reside again in a high fire risk area. And since 2020, we have issued over 7,000 rebates for portable power stations and generators and have distributed close to 19,000 backup batteries for medical baseline customers that are residing in high fire risk areas. And then finally, we do have a self-generation incentive program, and this provides incentives for larger battery energy storage systems. So think of like the Tesla or LG or Panasonic wall-mounted home system, or larger whole business systems. The one caveat I did want to mention with our self-generation incentive program is that we do have limited funding, and we are going to be closing to new applications at the end of this year. The one exception is that we were able to obtain additional funding to continue to provide self-generation incentive program funds for low-income customers. All right, so next I want to talk more about the additional support that we have available for customers with access and functional needs, and the outreach that we do before, during, and after PSPS events for these more vulnerable customers. So if you're not familiar with the term access and functional needs, this refers to individuals who have a physical, developmental, or intellectual disability. They may use electrical medical equipment at home. They are older adults. They would rely on public transportation. They may participate in the medical baseline program, or they may be self-certifying as having a condition that can be significantly affected by the interruption of power. So anyone that meets one or more of those criteria would be considered access and functional needs and would be eligible for these additional resources. One of the strongest partnerships we have to support these customers is through 211 and DDAR, which stands for Disability Disaster Access and Resource. And customers that may need support with transportation, with lodging, or with food assistance can be provided services or referrals through these two channels. And so we encourage our customers with AFN to dial 211 during a PSPS, or to use the 211 Now Care Coordination app for personalized support. They also do a really great job, especially the DDAR program, helping customers with access and functional needs to be preparing in advance of an emergency, whether it's PSPS or earthquake or any other disaster that may happen, and ensuring that there's a plan in place for customers that have those needs. We also work with local food banks. So the closest one in this area that we are working with is the Manna Conejo Valley Food Bank in Thousand Oaks, and that's to support food replacement during PSPS activations. We also support customers with access and functional needs, emergency preparedness, like I mentioned before. And then we also are working with the community-based organizations, and we meet regularly, and they are one of our key ways that we're able to increase awareness and enrollment in our medical baseline program, and ensuring those customers are also aware of the additional programs available to them when they do have a medical device need, electrically supported. So locally, we're partnering with the California Wildlife Center, the Emergency Network Los Angeles Incorporated, and the Ventura Regional Fire Safety Council that support the Malibu Las Virgenes areas. And those community-based organizations are actively engaged while we are having PSPS events as well. The last slide I have for you is around the communications, and this is my PSA slide for everyone here. So as Ray mentioned on some of the notifications that we send out for the different types of outages, we are dependent on customers to update and provide contact information. And so as part of today's meeting, I hope all of you will go on and check out SC.com and go onto the Preference Center, where you can review and update phone and email information, and then you can identify as well how you would like to receive outage communication notifications, whether it's via voice, SMS, text message, or email. And one thing I also want to note is we do get complaints around PSPS voice notifications. Those are deemed emergency notifications, and so if we are needing to notify you of an imminent shutoff or restoration of power, you could be receiving those voice messages in the middle of the night. So just one thing to note as you're going online later and looking at how you have identified you'd like to receive information is to be aware of that. And perhaps text message would be a good alternative as well. I also want to highlight the outage map, so you see a picture of it there. Again, this is where you can go, and it will help to tell you what type of an outage you are experiencing. It will identify if you're having a repair, unplanned outage, or is it a PSPS event. And again, we'll provide you the latest information we have on the status of your outage and information we have around estimated restoration. And then additionally, if you have any need to have notifications for a location that you are not the SCE account holder for, so perhaps an elderly parent that you'd like to receive and understand what notifications they may be receiving, you can sign up to receive address level alerts by going to SCEPSPS.com. And I think with that, I'm gonna pass it back to Carla.
Thank you, Lori. With that, we are ready to begin our Q&A period of the evening and really hear from you. So as I've mentioned a couple times, but I'll reiterate, we have 2 microphones available at the both sides of the room that you're welcome to line up if you'd like to make a public comment in that way or ask a question. You've also been submitting question cards that the team is going through right now and we'll be grouping so that we can answer those together. We will lastly be taking questions online as well that we will go ahead and circulate in between the in-person and the question cards. So we want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to ask a question in whichever format makes most sense to you. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with whoever would like to go first on this side of the room.
Hello, Marissa Coughlin. I'm in the Cuthbert Circuit and in the middle of the Woolsey Fire area. And I would like, if I may, just to give you some reflections on what's been going on as going through the power shutoffs as often as we do. Initially, my husband, who passed away last year, I filed for medical for him, with doctor's letters, everything never was approved. After 2 gentlemen brought a little tiny generator like we used to have in our camper when we go to Mexico and said, here's your generator. Didn't even do any of his medical equipment, nothing. And they came back 2 days later and said they needed it because somebody else needed it. I thought that was sort of odd that they didn't have more than one. And then so it evolved into the power shutoffs being more frequent. And I got a generator. I'm in a townhome complex and we couldn't put one for the whole complex. The load factor for the roofs would work and there's nothing ground-wise to do that. So we each got our own. So when we have it, 21 generators come out and it's a very interesting scenario. And then I also had to get Starlink because when you have no power, you don't get your communications. You don't get them from the city, you get them, they don't come. You don't know anything that's going on. And the generators that you have to get are much larger than even what you are recommending to power what everything's needed, because everything is digital. Then it takes me a whole day to reboot everything for my office. And so on top of not having the power, having to do Starlink, paying $159 a month for myself for Edison services, having to lose work. I'm a consulting planner and permit expediter working in many jurisdictions. And it's a nightmare. And you get to hire more people maybe, go back to the nuclear power plant system. There's someone I refer you to out of San Rafael, California, who's working on that right now. So I really hope that you pick up the pace, because trust me, this is not a way to live. You have to redo your power in your house. And it's interesting, when I do a power shut-off, a permit for someone's home, I have to do MEPs, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. You can't get a certificate of occupancy until you do that. If Edison turns off the power, does that mean I'm non-compliant? Am I supposed to evacuate my home because I'm not compliant? Thank you.
Thank you, Marissa. Really appreciate you sharing your story. Yes, we'll take the next comment.
My name is Scott Dietrich. I've lived in Malibu for 50 years. You guys have put us into a third world situation. Your PSPS is ridiculous. It endangers the lives of everyone in this community. People are leaving Malibu because the power goes out so frequently in the fall and early winter. The PSPS program is a complete failure. It might insulate you guys from legal costs, though I think our friends in Altadena are still going to take legal action, or are. But think about this. You're supposed to be running a home business. You're a writer like I am. The power's out. Okay, so I go and buy a generator. I have to fill it up every 11 hours with gasoline. What in the heck? If you guys cannot deliver consistent power, get someone else to do it. Go out of business. It's totally wrong what you're doing. We're not gonna throw cookies at you, as happened at Gillette Ranch when you first tried to push this on us. No one wants this. It is not it's not saving anybody, it's hurting people. In the middle of the night, your power goes out. There's a fire. You guys shut it down. The wind is 11 miles an hour. Why? It's totally wrong. It's to save legal costs at the cost of living in a community, and it's just not the right thing to do. You need to get rid of it, come up with something else. I applaud your efforts for undergrounding. That's good. But shutting down the power, and now you say you want to shut it down more, you're endangering this community.
Thank you, Scott. I do just want to take a moment before we move on to the next comment, because I do think it's important. Scott mentioned a couple of key pieces, particularly the wind being at 11 miles an hour. So I wanted to just quickly go to Ray or actually Tom, to see if there's anything on that particular piece that we could offer in terms of context or some kind of explanation that might be helpful for Scott.
Yeah, that's a great question, and we often get those kinds of questions. As I mentioned before, there's so many microclimates in this region where you can have the wind that's really blowing in one area and just literally a half a mile away, it's dead calm. And that's one of the reasons why we have so many weather stations in this area, because of just all the nuances that occur within the wind environment here in the Santa Monica Mountains. So yeah, where your power is off and the winds are not that strong, and you're wondering why is my power being turned off, these guys just told me that they make de-energization decisions based on observations, and yet the observations in this area show very light winds. And again, so Ray was talking about some of the complexities where we have a lot of circuits, particularly in this area, they run north and south. So they'll run from the coast up towards the 101 freeway. And so we typically, when we do have our Santa Ana wind conditions, we have stronger winds that occur towards the 101, and that circuit is being affected by those stronger winds. We end up turning the circuit off. You're down here closer to the coast where the winds are lighter, and you're wondering why my power is being turned off. And it's likely because we have stronger winds somewhere else along that circuit. I don't know if Ray, you want to add anything, or but that's one of the main reasons why we have those kinds of situations where your power is off, yet it doesn't seem to be all that windy. That's the best explanation I can give with the information I have right now.
Thanks. Okay, we're actually going to go really quickly to an online question, and then we'll come back over to you, sir. Josh, do we have a question from online?
Yeah, Mark DePaula has a question about TUG, specifically the Cuthbert Circuit. It lists Malibu, unincorporated area under communities for Cuthbert. However, it's just a small part of the Cuthbert Circuit. And I understood that SCE was, I'm assuming, building the entire Cuthbert Circuit, undergrounding the entire Cuthbert Circuit as part of this process. His main interest is the Point Doom neighborhood specifically. And I know that we're not undergrounding the whole Cuthbert Circuit.
So we also, in addition to these experts, have experts in the room with us from our targeted undergrounding team, our local planning team, our land acquisition team, and our engineering team. We wanted to make sure we could answer all different sorts of questions for you. Team, is there anybody that can talk about Cuthbert and our targeted undergrounding plans?
I'm looking over at our experts over there, and what I'm seeing is that we have plans to underground roughly 15 miles of the Cuthbert Circuit.
We will
Yeah.
come back to this question. They're pulling it up. I'm gonna write this down. We'll come back to you, Josh, on this question for Mark. In the meantime, let's go to you, sir.
Yes, my name's Wade Major. I'm a Public Works Commissioner, as is Scott, who just spoke to you. And I'm also president of AMPS, Advocates for Malibu Public Schools. So I have dual concerns here. I also lost my home in the Palisades fire, my family
So
home.
sorry about that.
I appreciate that you're here because you had to know you're walking into a very, very unhappy room. And I'm not necessarily addressing my remarks to you, but to your superiors. So don't take it personally, but take it up with chain of command. It is a problem that Edison is a public company. If it were up to me, it would be unlawful to be a public utility and have captive ratepayers in the state of California and still issue common stock. Because we can't fire you and hire another company. You don't have market competition, you have captive ratepayers. And the only way that you can boost your stock is by stepping on us and raising our rates. It's literally the only way, and giving us worse service. So that's a problem. DWP isn't any better, obviously. We know that from this one, but at least with a public utility, they are accountable to the local municipality. The PSPS as any kind of solution has to stop. It is an absolute disaster. If it's a transitional idea to undergrounding everywhere in the Santa Monica Mountains, I think we're willing to live with that for a few years. But as the permanent solution, it's just not acceptable. I've got friends who've lived in the third world. Scott said you're turning us into the third world. I disagree. It's worse. I have one of my dearest friends has lived all over Africa, and he can't believe this happens. It doesn't happen in Africa. It doesn't happen in Central America. It doesn't happen in the poorest countries in the world in Southeast Asia. This doesn't happen. So it shouldn't happen here. We were told that undergrounding was too expensive until half our city burns down. And now you're undergrounding after the fact. That's like running out and getting your earthquake preparedness kit after the Northridge earthquake. It should have happened beforehand. My question is, how many homes and lives need to be destroyed before you underground the rest? Every single overhead transmission line anywhere in or near the Santa Monica Mountains needs to be undergrounded, and there needs to be a plan for it now. And it doesn't matter how expensive it is. Edison International is an enormous company. How many billions have you paid in lawsuits? How many more billions is it going to cost you with Altadena? Forestall those lawsuits. Stop gambling with our lives and our homes. And just spend that money and underground the lines so you don't have to ever again have a lawsuit and never again have to worry about a fire. When I was first appointed to Public Works, undergrounding was my priority. And it was very quickly explained to me, oh yeah, no, that's too expensive, Edison's not gonna do it. I said, well, why don't we just municipalize the lines? Well, they're trying to do that in San Francisco with PG&E, and they're fighting it, and they're going to court. Okay, my idea originally was municipalize the lines, take them off your hands, and then lease them back to you after we've undergrounded them and we've taken care of the construction and sold bonds to do it. And then pay off the bonds with the money that we make by leasing them back to you. And then you don't even have to own them. Then you're just operating. I was told that was unworkable. Well, in time, this all might become workable, and it won't be voluntary. In time, the voters may decide. The voters may even decide what I just said earlier, that it's not lawful to issue common stock and be a public utility with captive ratepayers. And then you're gone from California. Then you've burned so many homes and let down so many people that they just kick you out of California. What'll happen to your stock price then? It won't be pretty. So solve the problem now. Now let's talk about the impact on schools. We're trying to separate our school district. We're trying to have a Malibu Unified School District for the first time. We have a brand new high school. I am heartened to hear that there's going to be a microgrid at the high school. But that's just the high school. If a microgrid is good enough for the high school, should we be putting our entire city on microgrid so we can get off of Edison powered lines and do away with PSPS? I mean, let us know. If a microgrid is good enough for the high school, then maybe the entire city needs to be converted to microgrids so we never have a PSPS again. Let's have that discussion. I mean, that I find really interesting. The trauma that this induces in our kids in our schools is not acceptable. We had nearly a month of school lost last school year because of shutoffs. A month, an entire month lost in schooling lost. We saw it in test scores. The test scores of the kids plummeted because of the lost school days. So it's hurting their educations. After we lost our home, my 12-year-old daughter, we drove her to school, hoping that that would be a return to normality on a day when there was another PSPS. And she sat in the car and she cried and she trembled because she associates power shutoffs with fire. And she said, there's gonna be another fire. And she was crying uncontrollably. It took 15 minutes to talk her out of the car because the PSPS re-aggravated the trauma. It re-traumatized her after having lost her home. There's a human cost to this. Children, there's a human cost to the children in our community, in their education, their mental health, their emotional well-being, which will last the rest of their lives. This isn't just about money. This is not just about money. We have citizens with medical conditions who rely on the power. In emergency situations, people need power for communication, to communicate with each other, to power radios, to power walkie-talkies, to monitor the news, to power firefighting defense systems that they're going to be now installing. A lot of people are going to have their own power, but if their power fails, or if some of them don't install it, they still need power to power pumps, to power sprinklers. People shouldn't have to install batteries. They shouldn't have to be that autonomous, but they're going to have to do. So the question is, I mean, do we have to go to court to force the transmission infrastructure underground? Do we have to migrate to microgrids? What is the solution? Because PSPS as a forever policy is not acceptable. No. Again, as a transition to another solution, we can live with it. As long as we understand that it sunsets this year and we see the progress and we understand every single power pole and overhead line in the Santa Monica Mountains is going underground, and you give us a date and you say it's going to happen. And the executives at Edison International say, we'll pay for it because God forbid we have another fire that costs us 50, 100, 150, 250 billion dollars, because that's what it's going to start to be. And you can't keep rolling the dice with our homes and our lives and our children. So come up with a better solution.
Bravo.
Thank you, Wade. I want to actually get into a couple of the things that you mentioned because there's so much there. First and foremost, I want to start with the comments you made about your daughter and school loss. I mean, truly, loss of home for anybody is unimaginable, and especially the impact it has on our children. I think that is ultimately what we are trying to prevent when we do these public safety power shutoffs. So I hear you. We don't want the association of a PSPS to trigger the reminder. It is actually why we have to do the unimaginable and turn the power off. I mean, we are a power company. We want to keep the power on. But when we have these instances of risk, that's exactly why we're here trying to explain to you what our decision making is so that you have some context over what we're trying to prevent. With that said, we understand the impact on schools. That was something loud and clear that came through from the community meeting we had in March here on rebuild. And it's actually something we've been working with the city on. I understand we actually just installed as part of a pilot program 2 generators, one at Malibu High School and one at Malibu Elementary School. The most recent one was last week and one was as recently as Saturday. This is a 6-month pilot as we've applied for a grant, as you mentioned, to do a microgrid there so that we can really look at resiliency and ensure that as we're looking at long-term impacts, that we're able to really think about schools as this center of trying to keep continuity for the children. So just wanted to give you that context. Digging in on the undergrounding piece, and I'm glad that you mentioned this because there's a couple pieces here that I want to make sure we raise and go through in team. I'm going to turn to you at different parts of this, but just to kind of start high level. So as part of the area that was impacted by the Palisades fire, there were about 90 miles there of undergrounding that, believe it or not, were part of our plan for our general rate case that we had submitted for approval back in 2023 to start that work between 2025 and 2028. The reason why we were able to actually start the work in this area so quickly is because we had those plans as part of our long-term vision for undergrounding some of the work in Malibu, going back to the high fire risk in this area. As we now look at rebuild, that's 90 miles right there. Amir shared a little bit of what's currently, underway in terms of plans, but that's really our plan for those 90 miles is to underground. Beyond that, as we look outside of the fire risk area, or rather not the fire risk area, but the burn scar area, we also have 110 miles that we're currently in planning for targeted undergrounding in this area that would have downstream impacts here in a positive way for Malibu. If we are able to effectively do this, and there are some complications here, one in particular that we've been working with the city on and the county on, there is a provision in our permitting right now for removal of the poles once they come down. These poles right now are jointly owned, so we're trying to figure out a way to be able to do this work on poles that we jointly own with telecommunications companies, which means they're not our property, so we can't take them down. We can only take our portion of the poles down. But if we can figure out this piece of the work, that's 110 miles that would actually impact 7,200 customers and take them off of PSPS here in Malibu. That is, so I'm giving you the vision for what we have planned. Can I give you a timeline? I mean, we'd love to get it done as soon as possible. We are trying to work on these pieces. We had a line, and Amir, feel free to jump in here. We were ready to energize on a line just last week of some of the work that had been completed, but we need to figure out this pole removal piece. We cannot start to energize with current language in the agreement with the city that has us take down someone else's property. We're just not able to do that at this point. So we have to figure out this piece, but that right now is a plan. 90 miles in the burn scar, 110 miles that would impact 7,200 customers and take them off of PSPS. So I want to assure you that, to your point, Wade, and I'm really glad you shared this, like, if you know that there's a plan coming, that this isn't going on forever, that really changes the scope. So I want you to know that we have a plan. This is a priority for us. We know that the impacts are real and frustrating, and to Marissa's point, really challenging to go through your day-to-day lives as you are trying to just do your work, take your children to school, things that day-to-day impact you as you're trying to just live your life. It is why we're here. It's why we want to have these conversations and hear from you. I want to turn it over to Amir and team just in case I missed anything, as they have the details on the undergrounding. That's a very high level overview of what we're hoping to do here in Malibu over the next few years.
Yeah, I think you covered it very well. I myself, I have had an opportunity to share this vision with the city of Malibu from back in 2019. Been instrumental in probably developing a lot of the plan and the scope for it. Rob and I think last week or the week before he went on vacation, got to sit on a conference call and walk through circuit by circuit, section by section, along with timeframes to show him the plan and the scope of what we were trying to do. Similar to what Carla just brought up, our first attempt, my team moved, but our first attempt to underground from a substation, I believe it was the Merlin and the Cuthbert getaway out of the substation, did get declined from this condition from the LA County. So we still need to continue to work on removing, it's truly a partnership when we talk about the amount of construction we're doing from residents, counties, cities, Caltrans. This example of the last 9.5 months is where we got to see everybody align, and we got to do something that we haven't done in the existence of our organization underground this many miles, and it took everyone to be aligned And so to do the 110 miles, it's gonna be the same effort. But we have a plan and we have visibility to it and we're ready to execute. I think Genevieve's right there. I think she could tell you the same thing. We're ready to go. There's no doubt.
So on that note, Amir, and thank you, Wade, I do want to go back to the other question we had earlier on the undergrounding in the Cuthbert, because I think it's connected to the conversation we're having here. Are we ready to answer the question, I think it was from Mark online, related to the Cuthbert undergrounding?
Yeah, so
Could you go to a microphone so those online could hear us too?
so Cuthbert was a 2026 project. Do we want to know like which canyons it's going down? Is that going to be helpful?
Perhaps actually, Josh, you can repeat the question online just so that we can make sure we're answering Mark's question.
Yeah, so Mark wants to know what parts of the Cuthbert circuit are going to be undergrounded. He lives in the Point Doom neighborhood, so he's hoping that there's portions of Point Doom.
So we have a map that kind of verifies the locations that were in scope. Unfortunately, I don't have all the streets and I'm not personally familiar with where that's at on the map. If somebody is more familiar, if they could look at the map and point to where we're looking at. What Point Doom location would be.
So as they're working it out, I just want to make sure to give context for those online. They're looking at the map, trying to figure out how to best answer the question.
Yeah, so for any type of tug work that we're doing, whether it's single circuit, dual circuit, the areas that we are in, we typically have a vicinity map that will show all the roadways, all of the areas that are affected. This area specifically, you can see the highlighted areas of streets, and they're not completely connected. And some of the reasons why they're not completely connected are there might be areas that are already undergrounded. There might be areas that are extremely challenging to remove the overhead, the existing overhead conductor, and the only option may have been to go with covered conductor to harden the system. Because you got to keep in mind, if you go out right now and you drive through the Santa Monica Mountains, if you drive through all of these canyons, if you look at all the overhead conductor that we currently have, look at the way that we go from, say the 101 all the way down to PCH. We traverse waterways, we traverse mountaintops, we do all that. Now take your car and drive your car to everybody's house between those two locations. How do you get from a roadway to someone's house? To underground and to tug? That's the only way we're gonna be able to go. We cannot tug up the side of a mountain. We cannot tug, at the areas that are currently being traversed, whether it be transmission or distribution. So when we talk about doing that, absolutely, we would love to be able to just snap our fingers, put everything underground, but by doing that also, what Amir had said, it's a buy-in by everybody. Because how many, you think about all the easements, all the customers, all the landowners, all of the different agencies, we need complete 100% buy-in from everyone to be able to do that, to have the permission to be able to go through those roadways, to be able to serve all the customers and have everything completely underground.
Thank you. I just want to make sure we're able to get to some of the questions, so we'll go ahead and keep moving and
so
maybe.
this resident was able to take a picture and is going to send it to him. So that specific area in Point Doom, we're not undergrounding anything on the other side of PCH.
That's where everything worked out.
Okay. I did want to share one thing about the Cuthbert. So because this is on the 2026 plan, we have over 90 easements we're going to need to make this project feasible. So for the customers on the Cuthbert, you're going to be seeing our land acquisition team go out and, ask you for easements. And we're going to need as much community support as we could get, trying to make this project a 2026. So I just wanted to share that this is a pretty significant circuit. We're actively working with City of Malibu and LA County on coastal permitting, which Carla mentioned, but we're also going to need all of these easements to make this project feasible.
Thank you for that flag. Okay, let's go to our next question. Thank you for your patience.
Hi, this is directed towards Amir. I'm very encouraged by hearing that you're going underground. Thank you so much, and let's extend it. Caltrans, I've just heard that Caltrans helps support these. Look at this room. We're not filled up, but there's a lot of people online that are willing to help you make that transition, to give you the support you need. So please reach out to us, because we want to put all these poles underground, seriously, okay? Lori, thank you so much for all the support that you do. Nuts, okay? That's just crazy how much you have to do. And then there's Ray and Tom, okay? I'm astounded at the support and extraordinary effort being spent to support the insane program of PSPS. Watching the wind, predicting the wind, that is medieval. We're in the digital age. Put a monitor on every main tower, every key pole, transformer. You can go down as far as you want, but initially it will isolate where the fire's happening. You can get an immediate response. You'll have more accuracy. It's nuts that you are punishing everybody because you don't want to have to monitor the materials, the areas, the controls, whatever. There's so much money you guys are putting into this effort that can be put into something that's actually going to help us, okay? The initial investment will be a lot to put monitors on each one, but it's so accurate. Everybody can react fast without punishing everybody. Bottom line is that in the Woolsey fire, we lost our home. And I hate to say it, Wade, wherever you are, to this day, every PSPS that we get, I get infuriated because I'm reminded of everything I lost. Everything. My life, my husband's life, my children's memories, gone. Okay, World War II documents, everything gone that will never be replaced. Yes, we have a home, but we don't have our past. Okay, we have to move forward until we have a PSPS. And we're reminded again, it infuriates every one of us that you're going the chicken way out. This is not the way you do things. You do things accurately. We are in the digital age. Act like it, please.
Anyone have anything they want to add? No? Okay, great. We're going to go to our next question, and I know we have some questions that were passed in from the room, and we also have questions online. So let's take one of the written questions and one of the online questions, and then ma'am, we'll go to you.
Thank you. We have a few questions here around cell phone towers and asking when they will be energized during PSPS and other outages. There's also just comments about how cell phone towers in the past used to have more bandwidth and wondering why they currently do not.
Tom, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure, happy to. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. So I think I'll answer that by talking about the partnerships that we do have with the telecommunication providers. Of course, they operate their own business and they're responsible for deploying resiliency measures to back up their own infrastructure so that they can maintain continuity of service in the event of a PSPS or any type of power outage that's impacting their ability to keep our cellular and telecommunications networks up and running. I'll talk about what we do. So back when we were starting to see the need to increase engagement in the 2018 to 2019 timeframes with these telecommunication providers, we leveraged our relationship with the California Utilities Emergency Association, which is part of the California CalOES, the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. We brought those telecommunication providers into a room. We talked about the fact that PSPS is going to have the potential to impact that infrastructure. And we provided a list of the circuits that were most frequently impacted that are feeding the critical facilities that those telecommunication providers operate. Moving forward to what we're doing now. So during events, telecommunication providers are notified up to 3 days in advance of potential de-energizations. That's so that they can begin deploying backup solutions to make sure that the cellular infrastructure remains available. We host a daily critical infrastructure briefing with those telecommunication providers, where we're sitting down and we're talking about and sharing real-time information about what we're seeing, what circuits are forecast to be impacted, and maintaining that two-way communication throughout the entire event. Fast forward to de-energization, we provide them access to a public safety partner portal. It's a higher level of access that provides near real-time information to the telecommunication providers on the circuits that are impacted, either in scope for de-energization or actually de-energized, so that they can get out there and deploy backup solutions to keep that infrastructure online. I know that for some subset of their infrastructure, there is a regulatory requirement through the California Public Utilities Commission where they're required to maintain 72 hours of backup power for their critical infrastructure to maintain continuity of service in the event of a power outage. So I think those are the main ways that we connect with them outside of events. We also host what are called power talks. We get with them outside of PSPS season to talk about preparedness and resiliency opportunities and to nudge and encourage the need to maintain backup power for critical facilities.
Thank you, Tom. We're going to go next online to one of our questions.
Yeah, so we have two questions related to wind. One's a comment. Lonnie Gordon says, you also turn off our power when there's hardly any wind. And then she also asks, your company has set forecasts from Santa Ana for West Malibu. I've been told that by your reps.
So Tom, maybe you can respond to the question from Lonnie online related to the maps. And Josh, let me just make sure I understand that we're forecasting from Santa Ana.
So it's a comment. You turn the power off when there's hardly any wind. So I think if you could explain the forecasting and the criteria, and then address where the forecasting comes from. I mean, centralized.
I think we addressed that. I want to make sure we're getting to the questions that we haven't addressed. Is there another question online maybe that we can get to, since I think we addressed that one a bit earlier?
Do you factor in the telecom installations on your poles as a problem? Co-location causes extra weight. They can also ignite independently. What is your response?
Do we have someone who can talk about the weight of the telecom infrastructure on the poles?
So there are regulations about what's called pole loading that telecommunication companies and utilities have to adhere to. That's not one of the factors that go into when we will de-energize the facilities. We are looking at if it's bare wire, if something could fly into the lines. So not if a communication company is there, we're looking at potentially something getting into the wire. And then if it's cover conductor, we have a different threshold. So the telecommunications, we're making sure our poles are stout enough and can maintain and be supported with us and the telecommunication facilities.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go to our next question, ma'am.
My name is Bambi Young. I live in Corral Canyon, which is the Merlin circuit, which I thought we were going to get underground, but it sounds like that's in question now. That's not my question right now. However, all right. I sense a major failure of communication here. You guys are talking down to us. We need a whole lot more of you getting out there before you need something from us and finding out what conditions are like. It's not just that fires are traumatic or losing a house is traumatic. The PSPS is terribly traumatic. In January, our house didn't burn, although we came close 3 times. But we didn't have power for weeks at a time. Your batteries are not going to go for weeks. Generators require fuel. You live up a canyon, you can barely get out. Where are you going to get the fuel? Okay, we are stuck. We had we have a generator, but not enough for a whole house. Most people can't afford that, especially people who live in the canyons. You gotta get propane. And we didn't have any hot water for weeks, but more than that, we had a house that burned years ago. I've been living in Corral Canyon for 35 years. Ours burned in 1996. Every time the PSPS goes on, it brings the whole thing back. There's the communication problem. It is exemplified by what happened in Big Rock. So in Big Rock, as you may recall, a power line which was inactivated went down. how come there was no communication between SCE and the fire first responders because, so that they would know that that line was inactivated and they could go in? But as a result, they didn't know. People almost died. At least one person may have died because of the lack of communication between you and community members. Okay? So we have a very robust group of first responders, of people protecting the community within our neighborhoods. Why are you not coordinating, for example, with the head of each fire safety alliance, neighborhood by neighborhood? Not just when an emergency occurs. You guys want rights of entry? Then you need to do some repair of the relationships here. You need to be in contact with those people, and we don't like having dictates coming down on us. I was at the first meeting in 2018 when you guys announced the PSPS. People were really, really upset because they knew once the power comes down and you're in a canyon, you have no way of communicating if you don't have a satellite link. None. Because cell phones don't work up in the canyons. We rely on internet service to get phone service up there. Power's out, you can't communicate. You guys need to be aware that that's a real issue, so that you don't have another power line going down, it's inactivated, and everybody's afraid to go there, and so 3/4 of the neighborhood burns. I've been to a number of these meetings, and again, I feel like you guys have this conflict, all these models. There are people right there looking at conditions that can report to you a lot more accurately than all of your equipment. I agree, we need more equipment, but the fact is, you could know what the limitations are in each neighborhood. You could identify what people in each neighborhood need help. You could figure out whether there's enough help for them to last for like 2 weeks, because you're promising even longer than what we had last year, which was at least 2 weeks at a time that we had no power. So that's my main concern, that you are not coordinating with the locals. It sounds like it's all corporate dictating, all these complicated plans. We've got a fire safety brigade. Our neighborhood has its own trained fire people, our own fire engine. We've had to resort to that because we don't feel we're protected, and we certainly do not feel protected by the PSPSs. And everybody pointed that out in 2018, and we were brushed off. That is the legacy you guys have left. You can't turn that. I think many of us who are in the fire safety alliances would be happy to work with you, but you have to come to us, and not just when you need something.
Well, thank you so much, Bambi. First and foremost, I want to just acknowledge and thank you for your willingness around that collaboration, and I think we would welcome the collaboration with the Fire Safety Alliances. I think that's something our team can take back as an actionable item. Separate and apart from that, I know that the Big Rock, your comment on the power line, that actually was a telecommunications line. It was not our line, but I did want to ask Tom, who I know sits in our emergency operations center many days when these types of things happen, to talk a little bit briefly, just because we have a lot of questions, on how that coordination works with the fire departments.
Yeah, thanks, Carla. So we are very closely connected with our emergency management agency partners at both the county and the state level, not just during events, in preparation for events, but I'm going to focus my comments on how we engage during events. So again, starting 3 days out, we are sending notifications to our public safety partners, which includes first responder agencies, to make sure that they're aware of the incoming PSPS events. During the events, we go beyond just sending a notification. So we meet daily with our state agency partners at Cal OES, the California Public Utilities Commission, and CAL FIRE. And then we also host a daily coordination call with our county emergency management agency partners. So think County Office of Emergency Management, who under the state standardized emergency management systems has jurisdiction for feeding that information down to both the city level and the local agency level. So that outreach is occurring during those daily calls, but then above and beyond that, we're in constant communication with our partners around any public safety issues that are identified during the event. In addition, we have a fire management team. We deploy those fire managers out to active wildfire at the incident command post, and they're coordinating directly with our first responder agencies as liaisons, providing information back and forth between Edison and the fire agency. I'm not familiar with that specific example.
Then somebody needs to figure out why that happened to Bangor. People put the firemen would not go up even when they thought somebody was dying. Why did that happen? You guys need to ask that question.
They don't know the territory, they can't take the trucks up. That's,
Then they need to.
we have the beacon boxes. You know, the beacon boxes at the front, yeah, exactly, and I talked to Caltrans, nobody knew about beacon boxes, none of the fire trucks knew about
Yeah,
it.
it sounds like you
It's
guys
nuts.
are not knowledgeable about the community that you purport to serve.
And again, thank you, Bambi. I know you're trying to figure out what happened in that particular instance, but again, that was not our power line. So I just want to clarify that in that particular instance, our folks were communicating directly with fire. So I don't have an answer for you just because that was not, again, our line. So it's frankly out of our hands with that piece. But I did just want to make sure we noted and gave you some context on when it is our situation. Many times we are in that situation. We are working very closely with all of the fire and local emergency personnel.
Well, evidently, for whatever reason, all of these complicated coordinations aren't getting the job done. And you need to ask why.
And I agree, and I also think that's where working more closely, like you said, with the fire safety alliances and councils, I think that's also a really great way to also have insight over the work that you all are doing and how we can work together around that.
And Carla, real quick, I'll just note it also that our fire management personnel are plugged in with some fire safe councils, and they also sit on boards and industry associations. But if there's any recommendations, like Carla said, we'd love to learn about them and would be interested in joining.
We had
Thank
the
you.
fire state alliance for years.
Excellent.
The whole thing in 2007, nobody's contacted.
Let's connect.
We're gonna go next, we're gonna go to person in the room over here, ma'am, and then we're gonna go read, Stephanie, you're gonna read, and then Josh, you're gonna take online. Okay.
Good evening. Thank you so much for the privilege of your time and for coming to hear all our concerns and our voices. My name is Leah Johnson. I want you to know that I strongly support all the comments of the previous speakers here, the Malibu residents that came to this mic. You can hear the high level of frustration in their hearts because we have been through a lot and we're still going through a lot. I lost 3 homes, not 1, not 2, 3. 1 in the Woolsey fire, 2 in the Palisades fire. And I've been traumatized, my family and I, to the max, beyond, above any roof. I cannot even explain to you into adequate words. I come from former communist country of Romania. I grew up in Romania. I lived in Romania with many power outages, not just power outages, water outages, gas outages, every kind of utility outages, without any kind of notification, and the power was taken away from us for weeks. Water, a month, easy, a month. Nobody knew why, nobody notified anybody. That's communism for you. I lived it. Now, fast forward, I moved to America 40 years ago. I'm a resident of Malibu, and I work here in Malibu, and I volunteer for my community people here in Malibu for 40 years. I'm a resident of Malibu, and I live with the same nightmare like I grew up in Romania. Power shutoffs, PSPS. Why? Why do I have to be traumatized for the rest of my life because there's maybe a gentle little wind or not even wind? Yesterday, for instance, give you an example. I woke up ready to go to work, my husband and I, and we have no power. I look on my phone, look on my text, no text message. Of course, I couldn't get internet. I couldn't even get text message. No internet. We couldn't take showers. No hot water. No TV. You know, we were totally 100% in the dark. Didn't get any notification from anybody. And we work a lot I have an office, but we also work a lot out of our homes, out of our home. We could not do our work because we had no power the whole day. The power came back, I think around 5 o'clock or 4:45 or something like that. So I have to get in my car and come to downtown Malibu, to my office or somewhere else, to be able to find out why we don't have power, to be able to report the power outage. And this is completely unacceptable. I have a lot to tell you, and I'm not an eloquent speaker by any means, but I will speak to you from my heart. I feel again that I'm back, transported back in my dark days of communist Romania, and it shouldn't be that way. Power outage, every time you do a PSTS, PSPS, whatever you call it, is a huge disruption on everybody's life, especially the Malibu residents. Look in this room, look online, hundreds, maybe thousands Malibu residents online. Most people here, most people online, they lost their home, whether it was Woolsey or Palisades, they lost a home, most of them. They are extremely fragile. They are extremely, they're in a lot of pain. They're extremely wounded because they lost everything, like I lost everything. I'm not talking about material possessions. There's a lot of irreplaceable, valuable treasures that we lost, like memories, like you know, so many other things that I cannot even put into words. So I have a question. Being traumatized with the PSPS, every time you guys feel like doing it, have you ever considered, well, if we are gonna put all these people at risk, all the Malibu residents at risk, and take their power off, maybe we should give them a little discount in the Edison bill. Have you ever thought that? I never got a discount in the Edison bill. And like the lady before me, this lovely lady, said, in the month of January, we didn't have power for, I believe, close to 3 weeks. No power anywhere in 3 weeks. So in order to even, for people who have a generator, I remember, not this fire, but on a previous fire, I was walking, the streets were all closed, cops were closing every street, and people couldn't get around and all that. And my husband and I, we did not evacuate. So we put out a lot of fires of our neighbors and saved probably 4 or 5 homes right on our street in our neighborhood. And I remember going with a can of gasoline up and down the street, asking even the cops, asking everybody that I could find, and even because all the gas stations were closed, stores were closed, and I couldn't find anywhere to buy gasoline, anywhere. And I was low on gas in my car, so I couldn't even drive far away or anywhere. So I would have paid $100 for 1 gallon or 2 gallons of gasoline. I would have paid that, but it was not available. Why am I put in that predicament and in that situation? By power outages coming from you guys, from Edison, whoever is in charge, the big wigs of Edison, whoever is in charge. This should not happen to us. So yeah, we never get we only get increases in the electrical bill, but we never get discounts. I think you guys should really do something about that. If you have a heart for us, if you really feel for us like you say you do, then show it to us on paper. Put it in writing. Give us a discount for all these many times that we have no power, no water, no hot water, no internet, no TV. We are put at extremely vulnerable and dangerous position because we don't know, is there another fire starting? Is that why the power is off? I can't watch the news. I can't see anything. I have no internet. I have nothing. Of course, food in the fridge, if it goes longer days, spoils and we have to throw everything out. Also, my sprinkler system is messed up. I have to hire a professional landscaper to come and reset the sprinkler system because we don't know how to do it. It's pretty sophisticated. And so every time, plus lots of work because we can't work out of our home. We can't work when we have no internet, no phones, no messages, no nothing. So how come Orange County and other cities, they have the same wind like we do, right? But they never get the power shut off. Why is it only in Malibu that we are put through this torture? Why? My question is why? And I believe I'm not the only one asking this question. If you look around this room, everyone here feels the same question coming from their hearts as well. Why do you put us in this very difficult, painful situation? Every time you do a PSPS, we are reminded of going literally through the flames of fire, of trying to salvage anything that we could from our house before we had to evacuate. Every time we are reminded and we are scared, is there another fire somewhere? And we're not aware. And can we even evacuate? Because we don't know what's going on. We're in total darkness. Why? Because of your unnecessary PSPS. Now, maybe sometimes your PSPS is justified. Okay, I will agree with that. Maybe sometimes. But you guys, it's become like drinking water all the time. Or yesterday, for instance, nobody notified me. So how many times do I wake up with this kind of surprises that my life is completely coming to a halt because there's no power? But yet, you expect me to pay my electric bill on time, which I do. I never miss it. Yet you want me to pay my electrical bill in full and on time, and I do it. But you guys don't reciprocate. You guys should give us a break in the utility bill for all these major disruptions. And am I right? Okay, let's continue. I'm almost done. I'm sorry, I speak from my heart. I'm not a good speaker.
It's okay, please continue.
But I want you to hear us because I'm not the only one. Yes, I'm venting. Yes, and forgive me, I don't mean to be rude. I don't mean to offend you. But this situation, you guys, come on. I hope we live in a civilized world. That's why I emigrated legally to America from communist Romania. I didn't want to be under that oppression anymore, with no power for months on end, with no water, no gas for months on end. Only to come here and the same drama continues. That should stop. It should not happen like that. Okay, now let me see where I am.
There's more of us.
Yes, there's more. Okay, if there's another fire, we don't have any means of communication because every time you do the PSPS shenanigan, we're in the dark. We can't communicate. There's no phone, no internet, like I said, no hot water, no nothing. So no TV. So our life comes to a complete stop.
We're all in danger.
And we are in danger. That's correct. Now, you mentioned that you put the underground power lines by PCH. And bravo for that. This should have happened many years ago, guys, by the way. You are way too late because we had many more fires that could have been prevented if those power lines would have been underground already. But let it be as it may, or whatever the saying is, at least you're doing it now. So we're grateful for that. But what about the high main transmission lines in the hills? Those are not underground. So those high transmission lines in the hills that you don't put underground, they still can spark a fire. They still can put us in great danger. What about those? What are you gonna do about those? Needless to say, and as you can see from all the voices in the room and online, all Malibu residents are extremely upset with the PSPS. Guys, we had enough. Literally, we had enough. How come other neighborhoods don't go through this? Why are I personally believe you are holding us hostage to the PSPS. I personally believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, prove to me if I'm wrong, because I'm willing to listen. But I believe that you guys, by doing the PSPS whenever you feel like it, or whenever, I don't know, a fly flies and creates a little wind or something, then you play with our lives. That's not okay. That's not acceptable. Many of the Malibu residents who lived here for many, many years. I'm a realtor, so I know a lot of people. I worked as a realtor in Malibu for 40 years. So I know my community, I know my people. We lost many precious, precious people and family and longtime Malibu residents. Why? Because they are scared of the fires, but it's also because they had enough of the PSPS. These people should not have to be moving out of Malibu. They moved to Malibu because this is where they wanted to put roots, and this is where they want to live for the rest of their lives. And many people can't take it anymore. And you're contributing to that. And it shouldn't happen. It's a tragedy and unacceptable. Like I said, we're very traumatized each time you do the PSPS. I have a question for you. Which of you beautiful people here on the panel, which of you lost a home in the fires? Any of you? No. So, since you did not lose any home in the fires, how can you put yourself in our shoes? I lost 3 homes in the fires, 3. All my lifetime, hard work. By God's grace, God gave me those houses, but I worked hard for 40 years, paid taxes, paid utility bills on time, never missed. And yet, I'm still suffering and I'm being traumatized because of the PSPS happening so frequently now that it's kind of like, I look at my husband and I go, do you think we're gonna have another power shut-off? Because I'm done with this. I can't take this anymore. Please don't punish us anymore. We had enough. You heard us loud and clear. We don't want any unnecessary and stupid, forgive me for, I don't want to be rude because I want to always be a kind person, but I have to call it stupid and unnecessary PSPS. When it's necessary, rare occasions, we understand. But when it happens all the time for no reason, then you play with our lives and we cannot have that happening anymore. And then Leslie, one last thing. You mentioned that the circuit plans on Cuthbert were denied. I would like to know, this room would like to know, who denied the circuit plans on Cuthbert and why? Thank you.
Real quick, let me just add that the Merlin was the first one we submitted, right? The Merlin circuit, and it was LA County DRP. And it was related to a condition with language that requires us to remove the full utility pole. And that is, to Carla's point, is a language that we cannot abide by because we don't own the whole pole. And so we can't proceed with work until we work together to figure out how to remove that language. But the Merlin and the Cuthbert come out of the same substation. The getaways are undergrounded. And the goal is, from the substation down to PCH, get it undergrounded, and that was what was declined.
I did just want to jump in, and Leah, thank you so much for sharing all of your thoughts. I first want to just start off by saying I'm so sorry for the loss of your homes and for that truly level of trauma that you've experienced. I'm very sorry for that. I know there was a lot there to unpack, and I know others have comments in the room. So I just want to very quickly address two things. One is you asked why this is only happening in Malibu. And I wanted to very quickly go to Ray so that he can talk about how this doesn't just happen in Malibu, because I do think that's important context for you. And the second thing I wanted to also just check in the room, we don't have a PSPS on notice for yesterday. So I did just want to differentiate. Sometimes it's not a PSPS. Sometimes it's not because there's a wind event. So I wanted to ask to our team of experts who can respond to that quickly. So those are the two things we're going to address, and then we're going to go to some of our other questions. But thank you again.
And please also address the fact that about the reduction in our bill because of what we're going through
I've
and
noted that. That's not
all
something.
the suffering we've been going through. And this is for all the residents of Malibu, not just for me. I want everybody to be compensated for what we've been through.
I hear that. I will take that suggestion back. That's not something I can address in the room, but I will absolutely take that suggestion back.
So the
Very
first
quickly,
part,
yeah.
so I'll take this in backwards. So yesterday we did not have PSPS, so if there was an outage, that would have been a repair outage if you weren't notified in advance, meaning something happened on the system. This could be anything from a car hitting a pole or something else where there was an unexpected event occurred and caused the power to go out. That's why you woke up, there was no notice, it was not planned, so that's what would have happened yesterday. Now, to the other question, we use PSPS as a tool that we do use throughout our whole high fire area in our system. It is not just only used in Malibu, we are using it everywhere. So Orange County, parts of San Bernardino, where there is high fire risk area, we will use it when the wind and the fire conditions meet our criteria. So it is used system-wide, it is not just a Malibu-centric tool.
Correct. So I wanted to make sure, just for your awareness, because I know sometimes it can feel like it's just here, but it is something we use in every one of our high fire risk communities to try to prevent the unimaginable loss of a home, which we've experienced. Even though, again, understanding, as you noted so eloquently, the frustration and the disruption to your life. Thank you again. We're going to go, I know we have many questions online. We're going to go very quickly to the two remaining questions we have into the room, and then we're going to go online and do a couple of quick questions there. And thank you all for your patience as we work through these. Ma'am, go right ahead.
Hi, my name is Azita Khalili. Thank you for explanations of the first two presenters to let us know that what most of us perceive as a random punishment is actually driven by science and data. So that is very comforting to know. That was interesting information. Some of it went too quickly for me, so I couldn't really benefit from all of it. For example, what went to the formula with the FP factor, with the best case of a 1 and a worst case of a 17. And some of it was through a question mark as to an average PSPS of 23 hours. My Galahad circuit did not fill 23 hours. It was a lot longer. So that slide would have been more beneficial to me if I knew, is that the entire SCE area, over which period of time was the average 23 hours? In July of 2025? So those are just comments. So in general, good information, but as you can see, we would have benefited from some more specific information that really affects us. Like Mark's question from online, if you would have just seen the map of Point Doom on the map or off the map, everybody in the room would have helped you. You would have had 5 extra minutes to complain and whine. Now, to the request that I have, that I know you cannot make decisions, you cannot knock off our electric bill. I live in a multi-family home. Putting a solar panel, firstly, not everybody in Malibu can afford to have generators, solar panels, and 3 Tesla wall batteries. So even if we live in this zip code, so I am requesting that you take to your management that self-generation program because it ties into the microgrid. It's gonna take years. I will probably not live to see that. It's gonna take years before this situation changes. So we need to take it in our hand and bridge this. Therefore, I would like SCE to shed some of the nice benefits they have from the corporate earnings back to the fire risk communities and subsidize installations of backup batteries and solar panels. I give those people in the mountains some internet connection so they know if they should flee or they should stay put. This is an actual request to please really have some money flow in this, not from the state, from the corporate, before waiting to pay all this punishment. And again, the outcome is gonna be people are gonna move out, so you won't be getting my SCE bills paid because I'll move to Alaska, so you will lose those customers. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to make sure we address some of the two pieces. Lori, did you want to add something on the generation piece? Because I do think that's a really important comment.
Yeah, so you're right, the self-generation incentive program is ending, like I said, except for the low-income qualified customers. We did, as part of the after actions from January, look to see what additional funding can we make available to, ensure customers that are qualifying for like the critical care battery backup program I mentioned earlier. We wanted to make sure if there's a significant increase in enrollments and requests that we would be ready and have the generation backup batteries ready for those customers. So we have been able to increase some of the funding to those existing programs available to ensure as customers have been reaching out that we're able to continue to satisfy and provide the backup battery to them.
Specifically, nobody had come to my door.
So we definitely can talk to you maybe afterwards because we have the program information. We have people here to talk to you about the programs and see if you're eligible for.
My specific request was to go beyond the low income because there are people who live in this community, they are not with the 80% low income, but still they don't have $40,000 cash lying somewhere around to install solar panels and batteries.
Okay, we can definitely continue to look and see what additional.
That's the program, that's the microgrid. If there's so much vulnerability in this community, it will make sense to have microgrid and have a lot of local power generation. And we need some funding support for that.
Thank you for the feedback. I'll take that back. Thank you.
Okay, great. Let's go to our next question. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Emily Scher. I live in Malibu West, and I lost my home in the Woolsey fire. For me, the PSPS events totally are traumatizing like everybody else. But my main concern is losing complete communication. In the Woolsey fire, I was notified it's time to leave. And during the Palisades fire, I lost complete communication. It wasn't T-Mobile because that was working. I think it's Spectrum, but whatever it is, it starts with you. And as soon as you shut us down, we have no way to communicate. And we're in big danger of our lives. And it's not okay. I have an 88-year-old friend down in Malibu West. He doesn't have email, and his phone relies on wireless, on internet. And when that's gone, he's dead in the water. He has no way to reach anybody. So I have to go check on him. He lost his home too.
I'm so sorry for the loss of your home. I really, truly am. There's not words, truly, that will make that better. So I just want to start with that.
Thanks, but it's really scary to lose complete communication. And what can you do about that for us?
So I want to go back to what Tom was saying, and I do think I want to separate the issues just a little bit because this is where, from our standpoint, right, it's the loss of power. And I just want to make sure when you're saying loss of communication, is it because the power's out so you can't charge your devices?
No,
I just want to make sure.
No, it's internet. As soon as you go, Spectrum goes, I have nothing.
And so that's where I want to go back to Tom's comment, because I do think that's an important one in terms of what the actual requirement is. Again, outside of.
On them? Are you saying it's on them?
So
They have to supply their own backup power?
They are required to provide 72 hours of backup power for
It-
those
immediately
instances.
does.
outages last longer than 72 hours.
Noted, and I do think that's where the points we've heard on the multiple outages, particularly in January, were really impactful. I think in the short run, right, in that immediate aftermath, that's where it is a bit of a partnership with both. So I do want to go back to the information Tom was sharing.
Starts with you, and you're the reason that the internet gets cut off.
Sure.
And you're putting us in danger, our lives. We have no way to know it's time to evacuate.
I'm sorry, and you never showed us data of the benefit of 6 years of PSPS. I forgot to ask that question. If you're data driven, show us the data.
Absolutely.
What happened
In January alone, we had 97 instances where, because we had PSPS, and this is not in Malibu, this is across our service area.
Yes.
So I just want to be clear. 97 instances where, because we turned the power off, it actually prevented an ignition. It is why we do this, because we are trying to prevent another situation where your home is burnt down.
Compare
That
to
is
before 2018. I'm sorry, we need to see a chart before PSPS, after PSPS. What exactly happened? What does the data tell us?
I'm happy to chat with you. I'm happy to chat with you afterwards. I do want
10
to
days, I lost food in my fridge 3 times. Are you gonna pay for that next time? That was like $1,000.
So, and we do, well,
Answer a question.
on the food, we have programs where you can submit reimbursement, but if we have, just to be honest, if we have actually given the appropriate notification that we are having a PSPS event, then the likelihood of reimbursement is not high.
For 10 days? We're supposed to expect this again?
Yes. Yes. That's why they're doing this.
So if I wanna get one of these generators with a rebate, do I have to get it on your website, or how do I get one?
Yeah, we can definitely talk offline after this, and we can provide you with additional information on how to apply.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. We're going to go to some of our questions online.
One of the questions actually here in the room, what can we do as a community to get the changes in the county and city of Malibu permit language to allow the undergrounding of Merlin Cuthbert? How can we support that effort?
I think we're currently working the issue. I think we've had a great partnership with the folks here in the city of Malibu. I think we had a very positive discussion. I know we have active things going on with senators and things like that to start help working some of the ongoing discussions. I think as long as we're all aligned and we keep, as we get right of entries and as we continue to work, I know myself, I'm in constant communication with city and officials, and I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to work through it here in the next coming weeks or months.
Thank you, Mayor. Next question.
Hi, my name is Jane Albrecht. I live in the Point Dume area. I have 4 points. I'll try to make them quickly. First of all, on the PSPS things, I won't elaborate on that because so many people have commented. I definitely endorse Wade Major's idea that this should be a transition strategy, not a permanent strategy. I spent my career in Wall Street law firms advising big corporations, and I can tell you it was implemented after 2018 as a legal defense strategy. And I understand it does help fires, but it's not a permanent solution. But the next thing is something that is totally within the power of SCE to improve. And I use that word, with full pun intended. And that is for anyone who observes it, both your internal and your external communications are woefully inadequate, very substandard, especially with today's technology. I'll give you 2 examples. This is something SCE can and should improve quickly. Internal communications during the fire, during the Palisades fire. Point Dume didn't burn, but de facto we had to evacuate because even though we had a generator with no gas or electricity, it was December, things were getting very cold. My neighbors and I called SCE several days afterwards, in fact, up to a week and two afterwards, to try to get basic information so that we could make decisions. Do we have to evacuate or do we have to stay evacuated? When can we go back home? Just basic information. First of all, your people on the phone had no information. Secondly, the attitude expressed was, quote, be glad you didn't lose your house, rather than what information do you need? No understanding that we were facing difficulties and just trying to get basic information so we could make intelligent decisions. When it came time to, this is on internal communications because they didn't have information. You put a table up with people at Point Doom. They knew nothing. So what we did is we were evacuated. We would come back every day. We would find your technicians to find out what was going on. And all we would do is say, what are you doing? When we found out what they were doing, gave us enough information that we could make our decisions. So that was a horrible failure of internal communications. People on the telephone, people that were repping SCE had no information. The other thing is the other huge failure in communication beyond PSPS is when you have repair or other problem outages. We've had several on Point Doom in the last month, 6 weeks. Some I think were due to repairs being done in the mountains or on, what was it, Corral Canyon or something, the water thing. Another can be a car can run into a pole and it puts the power out. You never, ever give information during or after what is causing the problem. If your internal lawyers are telling you that this is good because then you won't get sued, I can tell you, I would never advise you that way. You will not get any more suits by informing your customers what is going on. Again, people are being asked to operate in vacuum. I understand that you can't always predict right away how long it's going to take. But if people know what's going on, it helps them make their own decisions as to how they have to manage their day. So that's something that I don't really want excuses. I want you to make improvements. The last two, on the subsidy issue, she brought up a very good point. My husband and I are looking into it right now. And the subsidy is a problem. First of all, most people can't afford $40,000, $50,000 to put solar in. There is that subsidy you mentioned up there, I can't remember the name of it, but if you have income below a certain amount, or a medical severe situation where you'll die, I guess, without electricity, they will fundamentally subsidize the entire cost of the battery. You also have to live in a community that's lost power at least twice. My recommendation is if you live in a community that has lost power for any reason, 4 to 5 times in a year, they should get the 100% subsidy. And this relates to what this person is taking. The last thing is just a point of clarification. We heard, and I think you might have addressed it tonight, but I don't completely understand the circuits and things like that. We heard some time ago that they were going to try to create a different circuit so that every time Cuthbert, which goes up into the mountains, needs to be cut off, Point Doom won't be cut off. Point Doom, as you may know, has about 400 residences. If you could clarify that. And that's all my comments.
Thank you, Jane. So let's go with the last question first, 'cause that seems like.
All right, I can't speak to necessarily like a new circuit, but what we discussed in terms of our plans is as we've essentially undergrounded certain sections of circuits, let's call them segments, we have ability to sectionalize and isolate what we call like overhead primary wire, which is the risk that we try to reduce with PSPS, and underground sections. And so what you see us doing today as a part of the restoration and rebuild effort is from one station, from Topanga Canyon all the way down to PCH is essentially going to be underground. The Nicholas circuit that goes from Topanga to Carbon Canyon, maybe Carbon Mesa, we're trying to get that circuit underground and energized. We're in a little bit of a sticky situation that we can't do that currently, but that will give us the ability to underground those sections all the way and isolate the canyons. And as we continue to work west and get the permit approved for the Merlin, the Cuthbert, the right of entries, from the substation in the mountains down to PCH would be underground. that provides us a lot of flexibility to isolate the high-risk areas from the low-risk
So I was
areas.
gonna say, point two, as you know, will probably never, wildfire will never initiate there. It's possible a line could do it, but, so you're saying it's gonna take a while before that happens, before
We
you.
have, all that planned is approved to be completed for the next 3 years. So if all the stars align, I think Genevieve over there is saying she wants to get all that done in the next 3 years.
Thank you. And Jane, just on your other note, I just wanted to note, I do appreciate the feedback on the communication, and I do think,
I suspect you know internally, if you brought in an outside consultancy firm, I couldn't believe that they wouldn't make that up. It's so blatant, it's not even subtle.
and I particularly want to apologize for the comment, be glad you didn't lose your home. That's not appropriate.
I was not being at all obstreperous, I was just trying to get information.
Of course you were, and truly, that is not acceptable, and so I do want to apologize for that.
Having information. That can be fixed, I can't believe that can.
Yeah, and I could address that part, Carla, if that's okay. So I do want to acknowledge the lack of information, especially around January. We were dealing with a situation we've never dealt with before, and our systems were not prepared. Our resources on the ground were extremely, thin across so many different areas. We not only had PSPS, but we had significant repair outages happening as well with the extreme wind condition that we all experienced in January. And so we're reliant on the ability of crews to be able to get to the sites and tell us what's happening and give us those ETAs. And so you had kind of a twofold situation there. And I know you didn't want to hear excuses, so I am going to get to the improvements as well, I promise.
The biggest problems has been the last month when they have unpredicted power outages and you never, before or after, ever get a reason why.
Okay, I definitely will take that feedback, because with repair outages, there should be an outage cause included in the notification. Now, we don't always
By the way, it also, by not providing that information, you encourage online speculation and conspiracy theories.
Yeah, so I'll definitely look
You
at.
have the power to stop that, because if people have real information, they won't speculate.
Thank you.
Okay, we're actually going to cut off our questions in the room because we have many that we did not get to online. Can we get to I know our meeting was supposed to end at 8, so apologies for those who are still, we're going over a little bit, but I would like to at least address some of the questions online if we can hold for a couple more minutes, if that's fine. Josh, let's go with a couple.
Yes. Are you utilizing RAWs, RAWS stations to make the PSPS decisions?
The short answer is yes. In most cases, we use our own weather stations that are on our equipment, but occasionally we do use the RAWS weather station network.
Next question.
Next question from Carla McCloskey. I'm told one of the reasons we always, for decades, run out of water in Malibu Park during a fire is because when the power's off, no water can be pumped up to the areas in Malibu Park. What can you do to fix this ongoing severe problem? So it sounds like it predates PSPS.
Repeat the question again.
I'm told that one of the reasons we always, for decades, run out of water in Malibu Park during a fire is because when the power is off, no water can be pumped up to the areas in Malibu Park. What can you do to fix this ongoing severe problem?
So it's that the power is preventing the water from
I'm assuming
pumping.
water pumps.
Carly, you want me to help out?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll answer that question by going back to what I mentioned earlier. During active wildfires, we do deploy our SCE fire management staff to the incident command post to partner with fire agency officials on response. And those instances, if we are learning of power outages that are causing the potential for lack of water, we would then run that up through the incident management team to the incident commander, and we would review re-energization of those circuits. I'm not aware of any specific instances where that has occurred, but we do have protocol in place to help address that.
Thank you, Tom. Next question.
The power quality, regular service voltage swings differ significantly from other areas. Brownouts are quite frequent. We suspect it is maintenance driven, stretching component life too long. They believe this contributes to PSPS vulnerability. What are you doing to fortify quickly as it seems clear the SCE cannot keep up with things? So maybe this is a district question.
Yeah, do we maybe want to start with Ray and then go to someone from the district?
So if somebody experienced a brownout, which means your power didn't fully go out, please report that to us because that is not something that should happen. We will go out and troubleshoot that and get it repaired. That is, sometimes things can happen, we don't know about it, but we do constantly monitor our power and we are trying to make it better. Is there anything else to add on that from the local level? Okay.
That's correct. And we do our regular maintenance. It's kind of short. We do our regular maintenance program, constantly, once a year we go out there to patrol all the lines. High fire area, 100% of everything, once a year. And underground we go every 3 years. And, as things are written up, notifications are made, we go out there and replace the items.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Maybe this would be a good one for Lori. What is Edison and the city doing to help residents get whole home backup generators for a reasonable price that are pre-approved so we don't have to go through a complicated, expensive permit process?
So the programs I mentioned earlier are the ones that we would be supporting customers with, but I did want to mention, and this is only helpful for people in the room, but this would be available online as well, is we have a community resource guide. And so one of the key resources available as you're looking at the market and wanting to identify different technologies that you might be interested, whether it's a backup generator or a battery, is we have a SCE marketplace where it will automatically include the rebate with the cost of the generator or backup battery as one example. And we also encourage folks as they're looking at these type of resiliency measures, the cost associated with having a backup resiliency option increases with the load. And so we always do recommend as well, if you do have opportunities for either energy efficiency or for isolating to only your critical loads, it does significantly reduce that cost to implement a resiliency backup generator or backup battery system.
Okay, let's go ahead in the interest of time and take one more question. And I know that there were many questions we didn't get to online. So what we would love to do is make sure that we're able to answer those and share them out broadly. So we will be pulling those down and since those folks can't be in the room with us to stick around afterwards. Sure, yeah.
You indicated the Cuthbert Circuit, and you keep saying when it gets to Pacific Coast Highway. If you underground that, will it then have all the homes on Point Doom protected? That's where the fire was. I gave Carolyn Choi the after report. Did you guys get that report for the State Fire Marshal Post report from the Woolsey Fire? Did you guys see that?
I personally have not seen it.
Need to look at that report.
Yeah, but what I can tell you is that the benefit we have in terms of our work and segmenting and the amount of weather stations, we have ability to isolate where the winds are and keep things energized that are safe to be energized and de-energize things that are indicated not safe to energize. So if we underground from the substation down to PCH, you're going from high elevation down to ocean sea level and using different weather stations. So right now, the Cuthbert Circuit is coming from the middle of the mountain down to PCH.
So when do you anticipate the homes on Point Doom having not to go through power shutoffs?
So here's what I can tell you what I know, and I'm probably stepping out of my lane. Over the last 3 years, the Malibu has not experienced any sub-transmission or transmission PSPS. So by undergrounding the Cuthbert Circuit from the substation down to PCH, you would have a significant reduction in of PSPS. I can't give you the exact amount because I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the risky area is in the mountains.
We're now completing my final plan check for a Woolsey Fire rebuild. You know how many years that's been?
I was here part of the Woolsey rebuild.
Many of our homeowners haven't even rebuilt. These people need the service. And Wade Major is always a great source for me. He's always been this way the decades that I've known him. If you need help getting easements or anything, Caltrans just paid my HOA for an easement for a utility box on my street. You guys can do the same thing. Our community is very resourceful. I'm microgridding right now in Utah, in Idaho, and New Mexico, where you get some of your power from. So I would like to have you research helping this community do that as well, if you're not gonna give them full service with no PSPS.
Thank you, Marissa. Okay, with that, were we able to, we have this, I did want to note before we close, we have an email on the screen, so if your questions did not get answered, please feel free to send us an email, and again, we will be looking at all of the questions that are online so that we can get those answers. We really appreciate everybody's time, your candor tonight. It's very important to be able to have the space to listen to your stories and to be able to take this feedback back as we really do try to improve the situation here. You all shared loud and clear, this is a frustrating experience. And for that experience, I truly am very sorry. We will continue to work with you. We will continue to work with the city, who have been great partners in this work, for many of the cities who are online, as we continue to try to, again, manage the risks that we continue to see evolve every year, and at the same time, really try to strengthen our grid to be able to accommodate some of these changes. So thank you again for being here tonight. And I know a couple of us are still around if folks have questions in the room, but again, and one more time, thank you to the City of Malibu for hosting us this evening. We really appreciate you.